I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Is Director Gosa with us yet?
No, I'm gonna call him once we start action items.
All right. Then I will ask. How about Director DeSalvo? Would you please read our board priorities?
Happy to do that. Our board priorities. The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. That we will provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. We will direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Well, I was just going to ask Director Mayfield if you would read our mission and vision statements.
Enhance each student's ability by providing a quality education enhanced by a diverse community.
And then the vision statement also.
Education that challenges conventional thinking prepares all students to compete in a global society and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. Superintendent Tate, we have a showcase tonight.
Thank you. We have Smart Intermediate School, and I'll call on Principal Caparula to start us off.
Thank you, members of the board, Dr. Tate, associate superintendents, high school representatives. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity and providing this forum for some of our teachers to talk about a pretty exciting initiative that's going on in our social studies department. It's these kind of projects or initiatives that really help students engage in the learning, to make learning come alive and be relevant for them. And so without stealing their thunder, I think I'll just turn the microphone then over to Mr. James Pigney.
Hello, thank you for your time. On behalf of SMART, my name is James Pigney. I currently teach 7th grade Global Studies. And what we're doing right now at SMART, we started a fundraiser for a charity. Our 7th grade students got to pick a charity. And what's really awesome about this is our school doesn't always get the best media coverage, but over these last 3 weeks that we've been raising money, our 7th grade and the rest of our student body has really stepped up to find a way to make a difference for children in this world, in particular Africa, which we've been studying, to make a difference in their lives. So our students got to choose a charity, and we chose Feed My Starving Children, which is a charity that its purpose is to raise money to send food over to underprivileged and starving families and children in certain parts of Africa, which $80 can feed a single child for an entire year. And our goal is to raise $365, which can feed an entire family for a year. So I will give the mic to Miss Ellen Weishar.
Thank you. And so it all starts with learning and going back to the standards. And so in the social studies world, we are getting new standards this year. So we use the draft of the new standards, which are most likely the ones that will be adopted. And we designed our Africa unit based on these standards. I know it's kind of fuzzy, but up there is the essential standards based on Africa. We met together to talk about the standards and talk about the big ideas and the main assignments that we're going to be grading and teaching our students, and collaborated on those specifically. And so for Africa, we learned about urban and rural life. We talked about health and social issues in Africa. We did some current events, and then of course an assessment.
One of the first assignments we did was the Africa chart, and like we went over like the main like sicknesses and health in Africa, and we defined the problem and like the effect of what happened. So we would the teachers would give us a health situation, and the kids would have to research it and describe why it specifically happens in Africa and what the charities are going to do to help it.
So our real first step was to decide what charity to endorse. We picked 6 different charities. Most had to do with either hunger, poverty, disease, and one had to do with animals. So we showed slideshows to every 7th grader and had them fill out this Google survey. And overwhelmingly, they picked Feed My Starving Children, as you can see in the green, over 40%, which was by far the largest percentage.
So in the past, especially for the Africa unit, some of us been teaching this for a while, and it seems like we always talk about so many awful things in Africa, AIDS, HIV, genocide, poaching. There's like all these awful things, one after another, that happen all around in the world, but especially in Africa, it hits the hardest. And so about 4 years ago, after we filled out that chart in my class, a student just raised her hand and said, "Hey, is there anything we can do to help? I feel like we're just learning about all this awful stuff. I want to do something to help." And so it started with that about 4 years ago, and I thought, hey, why not? And so we started small, just in my classroom, selling some water and gum in class and doing a couple little school events, and it's grown since then. And it still started by the 7th grade social studies department because it is rooted in our curriculum, but we expanded to our school as well to just empower the students to look beyond themselves. Here we're learning about this stuff, and here's something I can do. It may not be a lot, but it's something I can do to make a difference. And so it's really been a positive effect on our students on having more of a world view. This year we started with Feed My Starving Children, and just basically, it starts with food is one of the quotations from their website. It starts with food. And I'll just read it. "A community cannot be transformed when its members are malnourished and spend their days searching for food for survival. Feed My Starving Children provides scientifically balanced meals that are formulated for a malnourished body. Once meals are established, Feed My Starving Children partners with other humanitarian organizations to build a healthy and sustainable community, providing needs such as clean water sources, teaching sustainable agriculture methods, building schools, and medical facilities." And because numbers matter, they do get a 4-star rating, so we made sure that the charities that we are endorsing are reputable charities. They do have a 4-star rating for a Charity Navigator. More than 90% of the donations are spent directly on meal production, and each meal costs less than 25 cents. The blue boxes on the right-hand side say $80 feeds a child for a year, and $365 feeds a family for a year. So we set that as our goal at SMART, is to feed a family for a year.
So recently we've been doing 3 things for the past 3 weeks to raise money. And So far, we've raised $275.82. This will continue until Friday. And in week 1, we raised $145, and in week 2, we raised $130.82.
We did a Buffalo Wild Wings night where 10% of your bill went to the charity. And then we did a hat and PJ day where you paid $1 and you got to wear the items and it all went to the charity.
We still have 2 events planned to raise money for this charity. One, we will have a dodgeball tournament, which will be occurring this Thursday after school. There will be a $2 admission fee where you can gather a team of students where you can play against each other. And then on March 7th, we will have a trip to a packing plant in Aurora, Illinois. There will be 15 students going where we'll be packing meals that will be sent off to Africa that will be sent to the children.
To add to what Parker and Joey said, on top of that $275, that's without finding out yet how much we made from the fundraiser we had at Buffalo Wild Wings. Last year when I was working at JB Young, we did a fundraiser there as well for an end of the year party for the kids, and we raised over $175. So we were really hoping that we reach our goal of $365. But this packing plant, I'm originally from Aurora. I went to St. Ambrose, loved it here, stayed out here. But I got an opportunity my senior year of high school in Aurora to go to the actual packing plant and do the charity. And what we do there is they'll have 4 or 5 kids in the warehouse who will bring boxes of food into an additional room where they'll have an assembly line of the remaining kids. And what they do in there is they'll package the rice, the dried vegetables, and whatever else is in it. And by the end of the 2-hour packing period, they'll tell us how many families we'll feed. And during my senior year, when I did this in our 2-hour time frame, we packaged enough food to feed 25 families for a year. So hopefully we get to do the same thing. Thank you.
And so to kind of wrap this up, we had to write an essay about why we think we're a good candidate to go. And so I'm presenting my essay. So think of this. We are not the majority. The way we experience life is not the same for others. 40% of people have the internet. Therefore, we the people of internet are the minority. 70 to 80% of people make less than $10 US a day. That being said, most cannot afford food or even basic necessities. 3.1 million children die each year from starvation. Feed My Starving Children works hard to make sure each kid gets the nutrition they need. Their main goal is that no kid goes hungry, especially when we can do something about it, which is their motto. They can use all the help they can get, and that's why I want to get involved. Feed My Starving Children is a wonderful thing. It provides help not only to me, but then other kids and adults in poverty who need food. They also provide a stable foundation so kids don't have to worry about their next meal and can worry about other things like school and even assisting their family. That being said, that kind of sums it all up. So any questions?
I'm sure there may be a few questions or comments. You caught me off guard there at the end, but is that's the end of the presentation or the showcase?
It is. We thought about moving the charity events up a week so we'd have it finished by the time we were presenting to the board, but it just didn't work with the timeline. So we still have 1 more week to go before we're finished, and hopefully, and then on March 7th, we're taking 15 kids up to the Aurora packing plant. We wanted it to be more, but that's all we could afford to do right now.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate all of that. I'll open it up to the board. Any comments or questions? Director DeSalvo.
I would like all the kids to come up because I want to ask my questions of you, the 2 gentlemen too. Come on up. First, I want you to tell me your name, and then I want to hear the grade that you're in, and then I want you to tell me how this project has affected you.
We're in 7th grade.
What's your name? Parker. Okay.
And so, what was the question
how has this impacted you? How do you know when you go home at night and you get to have a snack or Cheetos and you get breakfast in the morning and things like that? What do you think about that?
Think about how much food is wasted.
Exactly. Sure.
Why don't you guys speak into the microphone here so everybody can hear you?
I just thought that we go home every day, eat what we want, and people just can't do that in Africa.
That's right. Very good. Okay. Let's hear from the gals. Very good, you guys.
My name's Megan Dunn.
Go anywhere.
My name's Megan Dunn, and I'm in 7th grade. But it kind of makes me appreciate like what I have, because when you think about it, they don't even get to like eat every day, and that's something we take for granted. Like, because we can easily just go to our fridge and see food, and then they just don't have it available.
Right.
I'm Summer, and I'm in 7th grade, and it like realize how grateful I am. Like sometimes I forget how grateful I am, and then I realize like there's people in Africa that like need it, and like they don't have all this.
Right. Very good.
My name is Rhiannon Gomez. I am in 7th grade. The way this project has impacted me is that when you think about it, you go into the fridge and you say, oh, there's nothing in here to eat, when there are plenty of things, and there are children that are starving. I really wanted to do this because I wanted to go home with the feeling knowing that I helped children survive and gave them a chance at life.
Very good.
My name is Anna, and I'm in 7th grade, and this project helped me learn that don't take the food you have for granted. Like, enjoy it, because not everyone in this world has food, and not everyone can enjoy food like we do.
Well, thank you all. I can't tell you how much I'm impressed with your project and what you're taking away from it. And just because you're going to finish 7th grade in a few months, I want you to keep this going, because you can really make a difference in helping a lot of people. And what you're doing is fantastic. I'm very proud of all of you. So thank you for all this work, and good luck in Aurora. Pack lots of food.
Director Hayes.
I am so proud of each of you. In the Poverty Committee here locally within the district, we are looking for ways to try to solve poverty within the community, and you guys have gone above and beyond to go all the way to Africa to try to help them. And I'm very proud for you to even have the mindset to think of doing such a thing. Now, I know you're probably excited about your Aurora trip, but that consists of the drive there, pack for a couple hours, and turn around and drive back. That'll probably be a long and exhausting day, but I'm sure you'll enjoy taking care of all of those families. Anyone have any ideas, your expectations, what you're looking forward to when you get there?
I think mine is when I get back home. I think mine would, like I said before, was when I get back home, knowing that I saved lives, basically. That these children that are starving, if they go another couple of days, they could die. If they get food to them, I think I would come home feeling like a hero because I saved lives.
And you are a hero. That is very heroic to think to even do such a thing, to go that far to do that. Thank you all.
Director Snyder.
Are all 7th graders involved in this project, or is it just a select few of you?
So all the whole school gets to like be involved, like helping out, but only a lot of people applied to go to Aurora, but only 18, right? 15 got picked.
Okay, and how were those 15 selected?
Based on our essay qualities and like our behavior at school, our teachers kind of got in a meeting and decided.
Congratulations to all of you.
Director Kluhl.
Well, one of my questions was how you picked Feed the Starving Children, because I know the Heifer Project has that cute picture of a cow on the front. And but you guys explained it so well, and sometimes I guess I get a little concerned that children of your age are worrying about starving children in Africa. You know, but our world is changing. We are a global society now, and we need to be concerned about people other than ourselves. And I'm sure you guys have fun outside of worrying about children in Africa. You probably have some fun stuff, and probably with your group, you have some fun while you're doing these very serious things. So my heart is just taken by the concern that you have, your role models for all of our children in this district with what you're thinking and where you're going, and actually putting your own hands towards doing something. And I think several of you brought that out. And thank you, too, for talking about following the board's vision statement, which is, you said, well, what if? You said, we can do this, let's do it. So I appreciate your taking the risk and jumping out there and doing that, and thank you, students, so much. I'll remember this for a long time.
Anybody else? Student board members? Anybody at the board? All right. Well, thank you very much. All of you are just absolutely impressive. And it was a wonderful, wonderful showcase. Thank you very much. Superintendent Tate, we have a presentation on junior achievement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce Barbara Van Horst, who is the president of the Junior Achievement of the Heartland, and with her is Lance Huer with the U.S. Bank. He is a board member.
Hi. Thank you all for letting us speak with you tonight. There's an old saying, I think it's in show business, that says you never want to be on stage or follow children or little animals. So whoever set this timing up, I just really appreciate it. But anyway, first we're going to show a video that is, some people talk about, what do you accomplish? What's important? Are you actually doing anything that is something that's worthwhile? So there's a video we'd like you to see that's called YJA. Thank you. As I'm watching this, and I'm going to go off script for a second, which will just shock Art amazingly that I'm going to go off script. But as I watch this, I don't know if you all know the commercial on the radio all about how here's the dirty secret that banks don't want you to know, that you don't have to pay your credit card in full, and it's okay, and here's how you can get out of paying it. And I listen to that, and that just, it bothers me so much, because we're telling kids who sometimes have no other way of learning, financial, don't worry, spend whatever you want, and if you don't pay for it, somebody else will pay for it. Giving kids the idea that that's, or anybody, that that's the right thing to do is just indicative to me of the importance of teaching kids how to handle their money. And I've always said, I don't care if you're going to be a ditch digger or a neurosurgeon. I want you to work hard. I want you to do a good job. I want you to enjoy what you're doing. And if you learn how to manage your money, the ditch digger can be in a far better financial position than the neurosurgeon. And that's kind of what JA is all about. For the past 100 years, we have been teaching kids how to have good, strong work ethic. And work readiness doesn't just mean showing up on time and staying there and giving them a good 8 hours, although it's clearly that. It also teaches kids about team building and how to work as a team and critical thinking and problem solving. We also teach kids, as I said, about financial literacy so that they understand how to manage their own money, and they also understand that profit is not a dirty word, and that no matter what position they are within a company, that they are helping with the bottom line. And finally, we teach kids to think like entrepreneurs. Now, not every child is going to go out and open his or her own business. But the way I look at it is, I don't want somebody to be in a job and think, well, this is how we're going to do it, and that doesn't work. And then go, well, okay, I guess we're done. No. That meant that way didn't work. But there's 25 other ways that we haven't thought of, so let's look at it that way. And we think that if we equip kids with these kinds of skills, that we're doing them a great favor. Not a great favor. We are providing them the information that they need to have to succeed. In fact, I view it as a responsibility because kids that don't have those skills are very ill-equipped to survive in the world. Locally, we started about 65 years ago, and right now we serve 24 counties in eastern Iowa, western Illinois, and one county in Wisconsin, Grant County. And if you look at the colored handout that I've given you, there's a little bit of information about us. Each year we serve around 56,000 students in about 280 schools, and also we are in places like the Y, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Arrowhead Ranch, that sort of thing. And what we are completely dedicated to is empowering people to own their economic success. And we believe in JA that the free enterprise system is the greatest economic system yet developed. And we want to teach kids how they can tap into that and the benefits that they can derive from that system. We do all of this by using programs that we have developed, and it's a curriculum that incorporates, that works along with the core standards and meets the core standards in the areas that they are dealing with. And we also use volunteer role models. And starting in 2008, when the economy started to go to heck, a lot of people got into financial literacy teaching because there was money to be had in grants and everything. And my role might be teaching underwater basket weaving, but if there's money to be had in teaching financial literacy, by golly, I'm now teaching financial literacy. Well, that's when we looked at it and said, we've kind of been doing this since 1919, so let's see what we can, let's let people know who we are. There are a lot of good programs out there that teach about financial literacy. The difference with JA and the very important thing with JA is our volunteers. And we have volunteers that come into the classroom from the business community, and these can be retired folks, these can be stay-at-home parents who at one time did work in the community, work in the business world, and they come in and are role models to kids. And as you saw in the video, these people can make the change from I can't to I can, because they've got a role model there. And when I teach, I tell them as much about the things that I tried that just went completely down the drain as much as I tell them the things that worked. Because I think people need to understand that it's okay to fail and that you can keep going with that. So I will make a plea afterwards, but how many of you all have taught JA? Okay, the rest of you will not be leaving, any of you, until you have signed up. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. But right now, we have about 260 educators in the Davenport school system who are have the class. And there is another handout there that shows every class right now that JA, that we are providing. It's the Davenport Community Schools. Actually, that was for last year. I apologize. That was for the last fiscal year. And as the video indicates, our programs actually work. And it's very difficult. People will always say to me, well, can't you track the kids? No, you cannot track the kids, and for reasons that you know very well. So what we rely on heavily is surveys of alumni. And a lot of students will credit JA for positively impacting their lives. There's a survey, and the survey results found that when compared with the general population, JA alumni are more likely to have graduated high school and college, they earn more, and they are inclined to have started a business when compared with the control group. Again, we are very proud to partner with the educators in the Davenport Community Schools. And it's a three-way. We have the volunteer, we have the educators, and we have the kids. And every one of them has to work together. And we know that you have no shortage of people who say, we want to come into your classroom because, boy, have we got a program for you. But the fact that you invite us in year after year after year and continue to work with us, we're very proud of that because we know that you have to earn a place to be there. We do not charge the schools for the programs, and last year we provided about $175,000 in program costs to the district. And we rely on our partnerships in the community to fund that. In addition, we had, for those classes that I mentioned, 218 community volunteers from 74 organizations support the district by teaching a JA program. And we had more than 8,300 students in the district who received a JA program. I'll tell you again about volunteering. And I know I have volunteered, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm driving along and I'm thinking, oh, I got to go to the class today, and I really don't have time to go to the class today, and I really got to, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do this, I don't have time for this. I'm the president of this joint, I shouldn't be feeling like this, oh my goodness. And you get over there, and you get in the classroom, and you focus on the students, and it all makes sense why you're doing it. Because some kids are just getting it, some kids aren't, and then all of a sudden you see that light bulb go on. And you see them thinking about things that they'd never heard about or they'd never thought about. And they'll stop you after class and say, boy, that's interesting about that, or hey, what about this? And that's when you think, man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. That's when it makes it worthwhile. And I will share with you, too, when you talk about teaching a JA class, we don't say, we'd like you to go talk to a bunch of fourth graders. You come up with something to say, and we'll have you do it. We hand you a little kit. We have a training. We have a lot of people who are in the office who will support you. You go through the stuff. There's a little, there's an instructor's manual. You open it up. It says, walk to the front of the class, turn around, face the students. I mean, it's that detailed. So I really encourage you to think about volunteering. And we also have a list of open classes there, just in case any of you are interested. And there's information on the back of this green sheet on how to get a hold of us if you do want to volunteer. So I could go on all night and usually do, but I would like to also share some time with Lance Hoyer, who has been, he's with U.S. Bank, and he has been on our board for a number of years, and I'd like to have him share about his experience in that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much, everyone, for having us come here tonight. I really appreciate the partnership. First off, I guess I'd like to make sure everybody knows Dr. Tate's also on the board for JA of the Heartland, does a great job for us, heads up 2 committees, Titans, which I'm going to talk about a little bit here in a minute, and he also heads up volunteer recruitment, which has been very successful for us. So I don't know if you noticed, when some of you didn't have your hands up, he was writing down names there, I believe, right? So, yeah. Yeah, so great partnership. But yeah, I'm a commercial banking manager for U.S. Bank, but really my passion is junior achievement. It's been a great experience for me. I can really see the difference it's made for a lot of the kids I've come in contact with. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of flavor of maybe kind of what that's about. I primarily teach 2 classes these days, 5th grade, which is JA Our Nation. And I've been solely in the Davenport school districts. I've been at Garfield, Eisenhower, just finishing up a class out at Wilson. What happens is the capstone for this session is to go down to BizTown, downtown Davenport. And I don't know if anybody in the audience, any of you have been down there, but it's a great facility that we fund and constructed that gives these kids a chance to kind of practice life. If they spend one day down there in different jobs, positions, handling money, the whole gamut, even have a mayor that runs the little city for a day. It's quite the experience for them. But we can't just drop them in there on that. So they have to go through a training session. So for 1 day a week for 5 weeks, 1 hour a day for 5 weeks, I come out as a volunteer and work with them to kind of get ready for that. And the teachers are doing likewise when I'm not there. They're kind of prepping them. They have a separate book that they use to prep them for their day at BizTown. And so what we're doing is we talk about entrepreneurship, what that's about, how the innovation, the things, how everything kind of fits together with that side of employment. We talk about different career opportunities that are available. We talk about what those are like, what they pay. And we answer a lot of questions with all these types of things. When we get quite detailed, they go as far as constructing a resume. Then we have job interviews with them where they can kind of get a little bit of a feel for that. It's just a real good kind of introduction to life that I'm not sure that they're getting anywhere else. I don't think they're ever getting it in a package like this, kind of from start to finish. And it's very powerful. And a lot of the message that we have is that we were there too. You know, it's been a while, mind you, but we were in the same spot that these kids are at one point. And if we can do it, they can do it. And we kind of really emphasize that, the power of the potential of who they are and what they have, regardless of their circumstances, they can rise to any level. So very powerful program. You get a lot of great questions, and you see a difference in the students as they go through, and they love it. That BizTowns, that little teaser at the end that they know is out there, and we really play that up. So that's one area I'm teaching. Another one that I volunteer in is our Titans program, which I mentioned Dr. Tate heads up our committee for. Titans is for essentially junior and senior level students. And what this is, it's a computer format where they run a business in the computer, and they're competing with other groups within their class. Okay, so it's very lifelike, but they learn everything about from inventory management, pricing, human resources. It's the whole gamut. Very lifelike. They love it on the computer, and they really love it that they're competing with their classmates in other groups. So I've found that to be probably the most powerful program we have, and it's for some of the kids that really coming out there and can use it. And it relates very well. You know, they're at that age where a lot of them have their own jobs, and so you can kind of relate to that for them. You know, maybe you're working at a fast food restaurant, but this is why your boss is constantly beating on you about inventory management and that kind of thing. So it's easy to drive those points home and get through that. So those students, they not only compete within their class, the best ones then move on to a regional competition and to play against other schools, and ultimately they go to a competition across our entire area where they can win scholarships. So we kind of dangle that carrot out there too, but it's much more than that. Even the kids that don't advance, it really sinks in. I really wish I'd had it at that age. It's very powerful. Very proud of that program. So, you know, I guess I just want to once again thank you all for your support. We can't do it alone. We've got to be able to come in and have everybody working with us to drive the results that we get. So, any questions? Anything like that on anything that we do?
Well, we'll find out here real quick. Anything from the board? Director Kluhl.
Well, I appreciate your thanks, but honestly, we thank you back just as much, I'm sure, because we can't do it by ourselves. We require our collaborators to come in and work with us. We're going to be talking later this evening about budget, about cutting $18 million over the next 3 years. And without folks like yourselves, we just could not provide the quality education that our students and parents expect from us. So I do appreciate it. I think, you know, we've got so many kinds of literacy. We've got financial literacy, we've got art literacy, we've got digital literacy, things that we need to do. And what we've done now with our Iowa Core is we've said, look, these are fundamental requirements, these real-world experiences, the BizTown thing, when they finally get to BizTown, have the mayor and they actually see how it all fits together. Those are the kinds of experiences that are hard to provide in a school building with bells going off every 45 minutes. So we really appreciate that. And I recollect back to last year when I was doing Fillmore, the second grade class, and the donut factory was most fun. And There were some experiences with that my next door JA volunteer didn't enjoy quite so much, Dr. Tate, because his kids were saying, well, how come they get donuts? Were you doing second grade?
I was, but I also remember looking in your window and saw the kids just going crazy.
At the end of the 40 minutes.
A little bit too much sugar.
They were wired. But anyway, thank you very much. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Director DeSalvo.
I would just concur with what Director Kluhl said in that I volunteered down at BizTown when my son was going through, and that was phenomenal watching those kids. It was hilarious and really, really great lessons learned there for all of them. And I don't volunteer right now, but I can tell you I have 5 staff members in my department alone, just of my department at Mid-American, that volunteer. And I know they get a really, it not only benefits the students, but they come back with a whole new appreciation and respect for what happens in those classrooms, and it helps them evolve as well. So thank you for what you're doing. We do appreciate it.
Yes, if anybody'd like to tour BizTown, we can arrange that too, if you haven't seen it.
Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
I'm just curious about BizTown. You all purchased that building. How much does it get used? Because, I mean, you know, the BizTown thing is cyclical. What kind of use does that building get?
Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't actually purchase the building. We rent the building. Well, we pay a percentage of overhead, but we don't actually pay rent for it. And so that portion of it, it is used during the school year. We used to only do one program down there, and it wasn't used as much as it could be. So then we offered 2 programs. So there's BizTown, and then there's also Finance Park, which is a budgeting tool. So it's pretty much in constant use all the way through the school year. And then over the summer, we're using it because we kind of use that as a spillover from our office in Moline, as well as preparing for the next year. So it does have pretty constant volume, full volume.
Good deal.
Anything else? Director Mayfield.
First, I want to applaud you for what you're doing. It's such a great program. Over the last 20 years, I've participated off and on. I've been a classroom presenter, and it's amazing to me what the kids learn, but they also take it home and tell their parents about it, and I think that in itself makes a big difference. Not many places that kids can learn in detail and practice it and have fun the way it is, the way it's presented in the classrooms, as well as your city that's built down there. So I thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
There was I heard a friend of mine telling me that she had a class and they were doing the budgeting process, and the young woman kept saying, "Can I take the forms home? Can I take the forms home?" And they, kept it up and kept it up and kept it up. And finally, they said, "What in the Samuel do you want these forms for?" And she said, "Well, my mother, she's a single mom, and we've never done anything like this. And if we could start budgeting, I'll bet that would really help us." And you think, it just as you said, it's something that a lot of people don't have the information. So the fact that we can do that. And BizTown, from what, again, we've heard, sometimes in kindergarten through 12th grade, BizTown is one of the top 3 things the kids remember and enjoy from their K-12 experience. So, thank you.
Anything else? AJ.
So I was actually one of the alumni, one of the alumni for BizTown. And do you guys have a high school program too? There's some kind of.
There's the Finance Park, which is the budgeting, and that's usually for junior high.
Well, I know there was a
We
JA.
do have high school programs.
Yeah. So we had a visitor one day to our managing personal finances class, and he told us a little bit about like loans and all these different things. And I just thought that it was so informative. It was some stuff that I've never even heard of before. So thank you. Thank you.
Good to hear.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much, Barbara and Lance. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Superintendent Tate, we'll move on to student board reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. Marissa, I want to start with you and move to your right.
So the Davenport North Joy Club is having a friendly competition this Friday, where they'll be going through neighborhoods and picking up donations, which will be sent to the Humane Society. And this upcoming Sunday, they are also doing their first training session with the Humane Society, so the club can regularly go and volunteer. Davenport North Show Choir, so Northside Establishment in Center Stage, is going to the Fort Madison competition, and if they win, this will be like the 10th year in a row that they got grand champs. So crossing my fingers. Also, the North High girls basketball team finished as MAC champions for the 2nd year in a row. Go Cats!
So we'd like to recognize senior Tyler Josen for receiving the Academic All-State for golf this year. Also like to congratulate the boys bowling team who took 3rd place at the state championships in Des Moines this past Wednesday. And then CJ Bacoilis, who received 3rd place for individuals. We also want to recognize that Jan Edwards, the coach for the girls bowling, won the MAC Coach of the Year. Also, finally, this year's North High students are also participating in the Flat Stanley Project, which, if you guys don't know, we have these little characters, Flat Stanley, who we take around with us, take pictures, and then tell them about our day. It's kind of like, and we're doing this with 2nd graders at Truman, trying to get them involved and excited for North and anything else in our community, too. So that's what's happening.
So for Central, our band director, Alex Wilga, was awarded the Dr. Lewis A. Schmidt Citation of Excellence Alumni Award from Vandercook College of Music. In addition, we'd like to recognize our show choirs who had another incredible weekend, this time at the Southeast Polk competition. Blue Vibes placed 3rd place in the prep division, and Central Junior C.J. Parker was named Best Male Soloist for the 2nd time this year. Central Singers Incorporated, which is our varsity show choir, received 1st place in Class 4A and finished first runner-up overall in the evening finals. The show choirs will next perform at the annual show-off concert at the Adler Theater on March 6th, and will next compete at Janesville, Wisconsin on March 11th. In addition, we also had 7 Central students sing at the Mayor's State of the City address. They sang the national anthem. I'll pass it off to Joe for the rest of it.
Next, we would like to congratulate Hannah Mandel. She's an AP scholar and an outstanding Central High student. She was named a 2017 National Merit Scholarship finalist on February 22nd. We would also like to say at the state tournament on February 22nd, the Central High's girls bowling team placed 6th overall, and as individuals, Maddie Smith placed 2nd overall, and Donna Diggs finished 8th place. And then finally, CHS senior Sam Serrano finished 8th at this year's state wrestling meet in the 195-pound division, and Sam is Central's 1st place winner in 8 years for wrestling.
So thank you, students. We appreciate that you digging and seeing all those great things that are happening. Because one more?
Yeah, I think there's one more.
Okay.
There's a couple more, actually. I mean, it's not just for Central, but like for all the kids, especially like the Worth Less movement. I know a couple of the board members, Director Kluel, Director Johansson, Director DeSalvo. I know you're there too. At the Des Moines, the Des Moines trip, the Worth Less movement seniors, myself, Anthony DeSalvo, and Mickey Sloat, which is Anthony DeSalvo is from North, Mickey Sloat is from Central, and then Madison Cousins from West, all met with the legislature, different senators, different representatives, in order to basically lobby to them and push their cause and try to get equalized funding and support Robbie Smith's bill. So that's something that happened recently.
Thank you very much, students.
Thank you. Very impressive. Move on to board reports. Are there any board reports? Director Kluhl.
Well, AJ brought it up. Our Get on the Bus Day on President's Day last week was phenomenal. We've done this now probably 11 times in the past, almost annually, except when the weather prohibits it. But the weather was fine on Monday, no problems. It has evolved over time to be something more than just a field trip. We started this thing out, and the intent was to provide kids a 21st century learning experience where they could go out and see what happens in the Capitol building based on what they've studied in government class back at school, actually applied learning experience. The last several years, that has grown. As AJ said, the Worth Less movement was there in force, some in shirts, and got the opportunity to speak with legislators, and also AJ and others actually directed questions to the governor. He gave us some time, as well as Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds during the day. So all in all, a wonderful event, and we're going to be talking later this evening about a resolution that we're proposing that the board approve. And I cannot dismiss the impact that students have had in making this happen. Again, just like our Junior Achievement Program, we rely on collaboration so much, and our students were such a big part of this movement that we're moving towards equality in funding across the state. So I want to appreciate our students for that, our staff, and also former board presidents, Mr. Rodebush and others attended that event. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it, and we are moving forward with equality in the state of Iowa.
Thank you. Any other reports? Director DeSalvo.
I would first like to point out, most importantly, Mr. Joseph Sy over there. I think you had an academic all-state swim team that you made. Congratulations. You failed to put that in your report, by the way. So very good job. Congratulations to you. I, too, was on the bus trip. Very proud of our students. They just continue to amaze me, from the little ones we see here tonight to the high schoolers that were on the bus trip to Des Moines. It's fantastic to see when kids put their mind at something, they go after it and they accomplish it. And very respectful, very professional. I mean, my son literally was talking about football with the governor, so that's a long way from where we've been. So it was a very successful trip, and I could not be more proud to represent this district, and the students did phenomenal there too. Attended a legislative forum on Saturday at St. Ambrose. Very large crowd there. A lot of people here were there as well. We didn't get there was a lot of discussion about education there, and I think Madison got to speak for a little bit, but it was a good crowd there, good discussion. Afterward, we had good discussion with legislators as well. So this movement keeps going, and we're out there, we're getting the message out, and I think we are making progress. I've spent a lot of time in Des Moines. I was there on Monday, President's Day, came back on the bus and went back with the bus kids. Well, I drove myself, but went to see the girls play the basketball tournament that I think Tabby or Marissa, one of them, mentioned. And again, very proud of the representation that Davenport Schools had there. We took a bus of 50 kids from North, and I think we had just as many kids there as the team we were playing that was from Johnston. We were in their school. So again, very proud of how our Davenport students are out in the community and the way that they're conducting themselves. So I think that's about all that I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board reports? Director Kluhl.
Just a short anecdote about Director DeSalvo's son, Anthony. Last year we did a group photo on the steps of the Capitol inside, and photos are different than movies. The photos were interesting because there was one shot as they were all standing there where Governor Branstad reached out to Anthony to shake hands, Governor Branstad, reached out to shake Anthony's hand, and Anthony's like. Fortunately, there was a second photo where Anthony reciprocated with the shot, but it was very funny, and they've gotten together, yes, over the year.
Thank you. Any other board reports? All right, I've got one. The first community conversation with the board has been scheduled for Thursday, March 16th at 6 p.m. at the Fluellen Center, located at 1228 East 12th Street. Please mark your calendars. Also, Mary has placed a book for the book study at your place on the board table. Please read it and be ready to begin the discussion on Monday, March 13th at 5:30 p.m. The second book study to finish up will be Monday, March 27th at 5:30. Both these are scheduled immediately prior to the board meetings. Move on to communications. Director Snyder, would you please read our upcoming events?
Saturday, Saturday, 10 a.m. Legislative Forums, Rogalski Center, St. Ambrose, on March 11th and April 22nd, free and open to the public. February 27th, Monday, 6 o'clock p.m., regular meeting at the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. March 6th, Monday, 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole meeting. This meeting will be held at Buffalo Elementary School at 1000 Jefferson Street, Buffalo, Iowa. On March 13th, Monday, 5:30, board book study for white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too. Reality, Pedagogy, and Urban Education by Christopher Emden, 6 o'clock p.m., regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. On March 14th, Tuesday, 5 to 8 p.m. is the 10th annual Taste of Pro Start, Davenport River Center, 136 East 3rd Street. Tickets are $25 per person, and this supports the district's Pro Start culinary program. On March 16th, Thursday, 6 o'clock p.m., is our community conversation with the board at the Fluellen Center, 1228 East 12th Street in Davenport. And on March 27th, Monday, 5:30 p.m., is the second part of our book study, and at 6 o'clock p.m. is a regular meeting held here at the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom.
Thank you. Next is open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We have several open forum requests. I think there are about 9 of them. And there are some interesting topics tonight, and normally I would allow 2 minutes tonight. I'm going to allow 2.5 minutes for each one of you. When you come up, give your name and address at the microphone, and we'll start out with the first 4, and then after you're done, I'll read off the rest of them. We'll start with Barbara Lipnick, Robert Lipnick, Jody Zimmerman, Madison Cousins. So if you want to start, and we'll start with Barbara. What's that?
She ran to the restroom.
She ran to the restroom. She did? Well, then I guess she'll go after those other 3. We'll start with Robert Lipnick.
Okay.
Give us your name and address.
My name's Robert Lipnick, and I'm Barbara Lipnick's husband, who's here. I'm a coordinator.
We need your address.
What's that?
Your address also.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2320 Fulton Avenue, Davenport, Iowa.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, I've been really impressed tonight, coming here tonight and hearing of all the different connections. Of course, I had 3 children who went to school here in Davenport, and they're all out and in the world, and they've got a lot from the Davenport schools. one of my sons was the mayor of Biztown. So I was really happy to hear that, as well as many of the other things that have been talked about here tonight. One of the things that I know that I've been really concerned with is the possibility of some of the AP classes being diminished, as well as some of the more advanced programs. All my kids who went through the Davenport schools took AP classes. They also took college classes. In addition to being concerned about that, I'm also a coordinator of the humanities department at Scott Community College. So I know that in the state of Iowa, there's been cutting, I think, of arts programs. I'm also an AP reader, so I also have a lot of connections. I go to Utah every year and grade AP students who are studio art majors. So I have seen personally also the AP program here in art make a real difference to students. And these are really the kinds of classes, Spanish classes, chemistry AP, art AP, that are really at the top tier classes of our school. And though their class sizes may be smaller, I think they're so important, okay, because they're what people aim for, right? And I think it's also parents whose students come to the Davenport schools, they're very concerned that they have this, are able to reach to the top. So my concern is, with this sort of cutting that I hear about and know about, that some of these classes will be made, well, will be eliminated or made less, fewer of these classes. And I sort of see it like topping a tree, right? The foundation is so important. The trunk is really important. The foundations classes are very important. But as they reach to the top, the beauty is often in these AP courses, which are smaller, which are finer, and which are very, very important. So I hope that the board sees the importance of these classes to our students and to our community as well. When I'm, as an AP reader, I may be over my time, as an AP
you're gonna have
reader.
to wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay.
As an AP reader and associating with the other AP readers who grade these classes, you see that the AP schools are the very best, okay? And we want Davenport to be the very best as well.
Thank you, Robert. Looks like Barbara is going to come in next.
Sorry, I had to go to the bathroom.
Sorry.
My name is Barbara Lipnick. This is my husband, Robert. So thank you so much for letting us speak tonight on behalf of the importance of AP classes and advanced classes in general. And I'm speaking as a parent and a teacher and a taxpayer, actually. I've been teaching at Davenport for 35 years. I've been teaching French, Spanish, and classical languages. Classical languages is a class that we've had for 50 years. It was started by Joe Scott. He's still teaching it. I think he's in his 80s somewhere. I'm not going to divulge that exact number, but it's an amazing class where the kids learn a little Latin, a little Greek, a lot of my time's not up, is it? A lot of English vocabulary through Latin and Greek. That's also a class that could be potentially on the chopping block, I'm afraid, because it doesn't, usually we have a class of 15, sometimes 20. But these classes are really well worth keeping and preserving and nurturing. They are classes, for example, AP Spanish and classical language and the Scott classes that I teach. These are classes that have extreme rigor. Really, I have kids that study 10 to 12 hours outside of class. It really prepares them for the next level, as well as enables them to become fluent in Spanish. You know, the reason we're a nation of monolinguals is because we take 4 years of language and that's it. That'd be like if we took 4 years of math and expected to be fluent in calculus, or if we took 4 years of music and expected to be able to play the violin proficiently. So I'm saying, as Rob mentioned, our boys took, all three of them at Central High School, took college classes and AP classes, which really got them career ready, college ready. So please, if you can, do everything you can to make these classes go, even if I'm going to stop in 1 second. I need to be a faster talker, but that's nice the way it keeps going. Anyway, I kept hearing people say the importance of we prepare kids for a global society. What better way than to make them fluent in Spanish, the second language of this country? In Spanish, my favorite saying is "poco a poco se va lejos," which means little by little we go far, and we sure do. I'm hoping those kids from SMART come up to West and take 7 years of Spanish. Thank you.
Barbara. Sí, es la verdad.
Gracias, señor.
Could you also give us your address? I failed to get that.
Oh, I didn't write it.
No, you did, but we need it for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
2320 Fulton Avenue, Davenport, Iowa.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oh, I just got to say really quick, thank you so much, you guys. You are the most supportive board. I mean, I've been here 35 years. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate your support. I speak for all my teacher buddies, too. And the way you pay for AP tests, I mean, I'm also an AP reader. You don't find that anywhere. I mean, people say, wow, really? So thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Next is Jody Zimmerman.
Hello, Jody Zimmerman, 1428 9th Street, Moline, Illinois. But I feel like I really live at 3505 West Locust because I've been at West a very long time. Right. I'm a teacher at West. I would like to request your support, continued support for our building AP and dual enrollment courses as we deal with the reality of limited budgets going forward. Cutting the courses that challenge and prepare our hardest working students for their next steps can be likened to the frontier farmer who chooses to eat their seed corn or wheat or feed it to their livestock to get through a tough winter. Without that seed to plant for future crops, long-term failure is guaranteed. The challenge these courses present works to attract and keep students at West. The culture of the school is improved by students seeking challenge, and their work and conversation can have an uplifting effect on other students in the student body. Unintended consequences have created a de facto reduction in enrollment as well. For instance, AP Human Geography was a highly successful AP course, and was not only, it outscored the national averages and taught vital content that helped our students become stronger thinkers with 21st century citizen skills. Sadly, it was moved to the 9th grade, where enrollment has gone from 6 classes to 1. So I please ask to consider unintended consequences as you wrestle with that $18 million, and let us know what we can do to help. Because as Churchill said, in keeping the museums and the art during World War II, why don't you cut that? He's like, then what are we fighting for if we have to make those cuts? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jody. Next is Madison Cousins.
Madison Cousins, 5340 Shawnee Drive, Davenport, Iowa. Good evening, and as I said, my name is Madison Cousins, and I'm currently a junior at Davenport West High School. I'm currently taking 3 advanced placement courses, which will bring the total number of AP exams I have taken to 7 at the end of this school year. I'm here tonight to explain how the consequences of funding inequality and budget cuts may impact my senior year and that of many of my peers, some of whom are here today. To balance the budget at West High School, the current discussion is that some low enrollment AP courses for next year will be cut. I understand that the current budget situation is negative for everyone, and that everyone is being forced to make hard decisions. Mrs. Wiper and the West High administration have been placed in an unenviable situation. More importantly, Dr. Tate and the members of this school board are sacrificing their careers and reputations for Davenport students. But I have done everything that is asked of a student and more. I have taken pride in my school, I have been active in extracurricular activities and projects, and I have formed strong and meaningful relationships with my peers and faculty, even as other students leapfrog West and its neglected infrastructure for the attractive facilities and programs at other schools, especially Central, with its new pool, auditorium, and reputation for academic rigor. Unfortunately, even my younger sister is attracted to Central. But personally, I am saddened by the realization that I may be forced to attend Central my senior year based upon my course needs and may not be the third generation within my family to graduate from West High. I ask that the situation be reviewed in search of a solution that does not limit advanced students at West who depend upon AP to create more challenging courses and effectively ensure that they are prepared for higher education. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Madison. The next people up are Scott Tunnicliffe, Rodney Blackwell, Peter Rodebush, Diego Gomez, and Ken Crumwoody. We'll start with Scott.
Thank you. School Board. My name is Scott Tunnicliffe. I live at 718 Holmes Street in Bettendorf, but many times consider my residence to be 122 East 15th Street in Davenport, the office of the Hilltop Campus Village, where I'm the director. I rise tonight in support of Senate Study Bill 1124 and Senate File 340, dealing with the issue of equity for our school district here and districts throughout, also dealing with the use of reserve funds and weighing in with the formatting of transportation dollars. These two elements are absolutely key to addressing some of the things that have been mentioned for a couple sessions here and also at the Des Moines visits that have been made by the students as well as the board. It is not perfect legislation, but I believe it should be enthusiastically supported. But it does represent a positive intentions for the recognition by the state legislature that a quality public educational system is absolutely imperative for real, strong, managed growth in economic and community development. Community development is what the Hilltop Campus Village is all about, and our partnership with the school district is absolutely key to pursuit of that mission. So we would strongly urge support for those two bills, Senate Study Bill 1124 and Senate File 340, so that they might be passed in the Iowa Senate, go on to the House, and then eventually be signed by the governor, and we are devoutly hoping would be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Rodney?
Rodney Blackwell, 2110 Aspen Drive, Davenport, Iowa. I'd like to address the school board. I think we've been talking about this for 3 years. My son's a graduating senior from North, and they have won 4 football games in 4 years. We're asking that the district allow student athletes open enrollment to other school districts so that we could be competitive. Kids are no longer feeling competitive in sports. 4 years of North boys basketball, we have not won a playoff game in 4 years. Kids want to leave. We're trying to figure out a way to keep kids in Davenport School District, and we have to come up with a way where we can be competitive. Kids want to go to North Scott to play basketball. They want to go to Bettendorf and PV to play football. That's not fair to our kids. And we ask that the elected school board members look at a committee to hire coaches. Central girls basketball team 3 years ago went 1-21. That's unacceptable for Davenport to be at that level in sport. We don't have to win state every year. I'd settle for 500 right now. We need a committee to look at the way we hire coaches. We can no longer hire our friends. We have to go out and get coaches who want to win, who want to volunteer their time. I coached my daughter's travel team for the last 4 years. We're 97-13. So don't tell me you can't win if you're committed. Kids want to win. Kids go to Notre Dame, Michigan, and Texas to win. A winning program brings students into the program. And with the budgets the way they are, I received 19 phone calls since our loss in our basketball game of parents asking how can they transfer out of the district. And it is very unfair to tell kids that they cannot transfer out when college scholarships are on the line. It's unfair to our kids, and it's unfair to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Next is Peter.
Good evening. I'm Peter Rauterbush, 2250 East 48th Street, Davenport, Iowa, 52807. First thing I wanted to say tonight was I'm extremely proud of all the students that went on this trip to Des Moines last Monday. Those that were there know how wonderfully constructed their questions were, how well prepared they were. I think the legislators to whom they spoke and the governor and the lieutenant governor all felt, I know we're all impressed with this, with the quality of the questions. And as a former teacher, as a taxpayer, as a former parent, as a parent of former students, and school board member, I was just so impressed that the students that went along got so much out of it, but they gave more than they got. They gave so much, and I just can't forget that. I'll always remember that. I also want to mention that I completely support the resolutions which have been mentioned, and they are SF, Senate File 304, and Senate Study Bill 1124. Those are incredibly important to to every parent, every student in the Davenport Community School District. I strongly support those, and Superintendent Tate and the entire school board for what they are doing, and I was really equally impressed with how well all of them did last week. I was just sitting back watching, enjoying and observing, and I was very impressed. And I remember years and years ago when I was on the school board, we used to meet at Kimberly Center. And at the back of Kimberly Center, I think we had a sign which we had put up, and a friend of mine actually painted it, at the art teacher at West High School, that said something about remember our students. We must never forget our students. Every one of them deserves full funding equality. And I just want to support that completely, always. And I just wanted to make sure I said that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Diego?
Diego Gomez, 1670 West 49th Street. First, I would like to say how cutting AP classes at my school will affect many of our students like me. I'm currently enrolled at SCA with FLS 1, which is giving me 4 college credits, and I'm not taking that for granted. Although I have a job, I also put in work into that class. I put in as much time as I can and need for that class to be successful in that class, and cutting AP classes and classes that I'm taking for SCA will highly affect my future and other of my peers' future also. So, yeah, thank you.
And next is Ken.
Thank you, Board. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Ken Crumweedy, 33 Madison Circle, Davenport, former board member, as many of you know. I'm your AEA board member representative. I'm also a member of the Iowa School Board Association Resolutions Committee. I'm here tonight to share my thoughts about equality and equity in the resolution that you're to vote on tonight. Study Bill 1124 and also Senate File 304. These bills as many of you know, come from Senators Sinclair and Smith. And I appreciate their interest, finally now, in working for equality for all of our Iowa students when it comes to per pupil funding and transportation issues across this state. Many senators and representatives have been playing political games on the backs of our children for many years over these issues. If we want to give them credit, so be it, but I want to share with you where all of this really came from. As a member of the Resolutions Committee for the Iowa School Board Association, these are the resolutions that we drafted to present to our senators and legislators. And we really appreciate they taking that information and crafting them with Iowa School Board Association representatives to put both the study bill and the Senate file together. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but that's where the information came from. I spoke with Phil Jeremy, who's the Iowa School Board Association lobbyist, and I want you to know that, of course, in them working with our senators, that they are in full support of both of these pieces. And I certainly lend my full support, and I'm sure the Resolutions Committee from the Iowa School Board Association also will lend their support. It's not the best fix, we know it, but it also deals with not only per pupil, but also the transportation issue. I hope the board also will take time to give the Iowa School Board Association some credit for this information, because they did work very diligently with our Senate and our House members. But folks, the work's not over. I was also informed today that there's other bills being crafted as I speak, so it doesn't mean that these are the only two bills or resolutions that are going to come forward. Before I close, I want to personally thank former President Pat Zamora, because she is actually the person that brought it to our attention when I was on this school board. And she certainly deserves a lot of credit for moving this forward. Also, board member Rich Kluhl. He has worked tirelessly, year after year on this issue, and the Legislative Advocacy Committee. So thank you, Rich, for all your work. We have a lot of big fish to fry. As you know, there's also more things coming down the pike. Even if we win this victory, we need to be in touch with our Iowa senators and legislators over the whole issue of public school funding and public school dollars going to private schools and homeschooling. And I hope that you will be very active in talking to our legislators, coming up with more resolutions to prevent that from happening, so public education dollars go to public education in Davenport and throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And I want to say thank you to all of you that spoke tonight. Robert, Barbara, Jody, Madison, Scott, Rodney, Peter, Diego, and Ken. Your words are really, really important to the board and to our community, and I would say very inspirational as well. So thanks again for everything that you've done. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion? Oh, excuse me. What's up? Our board member, Director Gosa, is not at the table, obviously, and our secretary has been trying to get him on the telephone. Dan, are you there?
I am here.
And you can hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we're going to continue with the meeting, and you will be participating. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Mayfield? Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl?
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by the administration for adoption of bills. Resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn in the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of February 9th, 2017 through February 22nd of 2017.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to yield a portion of my time to John Flynn, District Athletic Program Director, to give us a report on some of the successes we've had recently in athletics.
Good evening, all. I had a whole list of things that I wanted to talk to you about, but they stole my thunder earlier, so thanks a lot. There's a lot of good going on, and I just am glad that Dr. Tate asked me to come and share some of the things that we have seen throughout this year to date. We have had 13 individual state qualifiers as of February 21st. Those individuals have been in the sports of cross country, swim, wrestling, as you heard, bowling, to name a few. We've had 8 team state qualifiers. We've had the Central Girls Swim, the West Girls Swim. We've had the Central Boys Swim, Norse Bowling Team, and Central Girls Bowling Team. From those teams, we have numerous individuals in the audience who have had the opportunity not only to go swim at state competitions, but have set school records in numerous events. Central Boys set pool or school records in both the 200 free relay and the 200 medley relay. Am I speaking correctly? Thank you. And the West Girls did the same, and we have 2 members from the West Swim team here tonight as well. We've had 18 first team all MAC or all district performers so far this year, and that's first team only. We've had dozens of second team and honorable mention student athletes earn those accolades. We've had 134 academic all conference team members in the fall season alone. We have a cumulative athletic GPA of right around 3.4 for our student athletes, and that's based on our fall grades. We've seen significant improvements in our strength and conditioning aspect of our program. Our partnership with Rock Valley has really taken our programs to the next level. We've seen gains across the board in our bench, our squat, our vertical jump, just about anything that can be measured. We've had MAC championships. We have had coaches of the year, and as I said, they spoke to you about a lot of these earlier. We've had a swim team finish 11th in the state. We've had all 3 dance teams earn Division I ratings, which hasn't been done for a long time. We've had cheerleading teams who have finished in the top 5 in the state. Our programs are helping our student athletes to become better people. I think our programs are keeping our kids in the buildings, and we're working hard to improve those every day. So I appreciate the opportunity to come highlight a few of those. I have more information available if you would care to have that.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Appreciate it. And congratulations on your assignment next year.
Thank you.
Today I attended the 2017 State of the City Address, and there was a lot of facts about what's happening in the city, and concern economic development. One thing that the mayor did emphasize, that one of the key things that they are looking at doing as a city this year is to strengthen the neighborhoods in the city, and we as a partnership with the city, that's one of the 4 things we decided we'd look at. So when we have our meeting this month, we want to work a little bit closer and see what they have in mind and we have in mind and how that mixes together. I want to read a portion of an email I got from a mother concerning her daughter who was auditioning for the Creative Arts Academy. My daughter, I leave that blank, has attended 6th grade. It's a school outside of Davenport this year. A few weeks ago, she auditioned for the Creative Arts Academy. We found out that she did get into the program today. She toured the Creative Arts Academy and settled with my husband. When I talked to her tonight about her day, the excitement in her voice brought tears to my eyes. She said, "Finally, Mom, finally I have friends who can relate to me." We had conversations about Hamilton and Wicked. My old friends from Davenport Junior Theater hugged me. It was so nice to have other kids who can relate to me and my interests, and therefore the reason we have the Creative Arts Academy. I just want to point out, we get the weekly Davenport Community Highlights. And so in 1 week, here's the things which we had about our district. And I won't name names because I would leave some out when it gets to the longer teams, but North student awarded full ride scholarship to University of Iowa. I don't know who that is. West robotic teams qualify for state. Central Wrestler placed in top 10 at state. Numerous Central Creative Arts Academy students win scholastic awards. Mid-City students lobby for funding equalization bill in Des Moines. North and Central Boulders place in state. North girls basketball team named MAC champion 2nd year in a row. Central swimmer accepted to academic all-state team. And Central basketball player receives team first award. That's in a week. We should be very proud of our district. That's my report.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to other items requiring action. I have a motion regarding approval of application for renewal of cooperative sharing agreements.
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the renewal of the cooperative sharing agreements with the Davenport Assumption High School in the following sports: girls swimming and diving, boys swimming, girls bowling, and boys bowling.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right. Call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding the approval of the plans for Central, Monroe, and Hayes Masonry Project?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation and approve the plans and specifications for the Central, Monroe, and Hayes School Masonry Project as shown in the 95% plans and specifications.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the plans for the Central, Monroe, and Hayes Masonry Project. The notice was published in the Quad City Times on Friday, February 17th, 2017. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion on the approval of the plans for West High School 2017 remodel project.
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the plans and specification for the 2017 West High School hallway and restroom renovation project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the plans for the West High School 2017 remodel project. The notice was published in the Quad City Times on Friday, February 17th, 2017. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? We'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder. Yes. Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion on the approval of the plans for Brady Street Stadium 2017 remodel project?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
bless you, Director Hayes. I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the plans and specifications for the Brady Street Stadium 2017 remodel project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the plans for the Brady Street Stadium remodel project. The notice was published in the Quad City Times on Friday, February 17th, 2017. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of resolution?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
after favorable consideration by the Governmental Affairs Steering Subcommittee of the Davenport Community School Board Legislative Advocacy Committee, I move that the board approve the following resolution. The resolution of the Davenport Community School District Board of Education affirming Iowa Senate Study Bill 1124 and Senate File 304. Whereas in FY 2017, 163 districts, that is 48.8%, are limited to the $6,591 as their district cost per pupil, that is DCPP, while the other 170 districts, that is 51.1%, have a district cost per pupil ranging from $6,592 to $6,766, or $1 to $175 more. Whereas there is no moral justification for denying some students the opportunity to be funded in the same at the same rate as others. Whereas the per pupil inequality respects no borders, creating capacity inequities in districts which neighbor each other, contributing to open enrollment challenges for districts with lower capacity and challenging student needs. Whereas SSB 1124 addresses a long-term 10-year phase-in to address the $175 district cost per pupil difference between students at the base amount and those authorized more. Whereas SSB 1124 is a gradual approach and the inequality that has accumulated over time is urgent. Students would be well served if the first 2 years of the per pupil gains were accelerated to a higher state cost per pupil. Whereas SF 304 addresses short-term remedies by way of reducing the capacity of reserve funds from 20% to 15%, allowing school districts to access the difference, and additionally, providing the allowance for the districts to utilize interest from reserve funds. And whereas another major inequity in school funding is school transportation costs, with school transportation mandated by the state but paid out of the school foundation formula without consideration for the number of students transported, the number of route miles traveled, or the difficulty of terrain based on geography of school districts. Whereas the cost of school transportation per student enrolled varies from a low of $41 per enrolled student to a high of $1,037 per enrolled student, according to the Department of Education's 2014 Annual Transportation Report. And whereas SSB 1124 addresses a 10-year phase-in to address transportation inequities, be it therefore resolved, A, the Davenport Community School Board strongly supports SSB 1124 as a long-term approach to rectify district cost per pupil inequalities and transportation inequities. And B, the Davenport Community School Board strongly supports SF 304 as a short-term approach to remedy district cost per pupil inequality. Be it further resolved, we direct our school board secretary to send a copy of this resolution to our local legislators, Senate Education and Appropriations Committee members, Quad City Chamber of Commerce, Davenport Mayor and City Council, and our local media to communicate our strong urgency that SSB 1124 and SF 304 be passed during the 2017 General Assembly.
Is there a problem? Are we going, does he want the whole resolution reread? I'm not sure that that would be appropriate.
Director Goza, are you hearing us?
You can try. I'm going to continue with the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Are you going to try to get a hold of him? I'll give it 30 seconds or something. One of our director, Gosa, who is participating by phone, wasn't able to hear part of the resolution. So our board secretary is going to try and get a hold of him, and we'll give our secretary and Director Gosa a little bit of time before we continue with the discussion.
Okay, Dan, I'm going to put you on broadcast again because I don't know what happened. So, okay, well, I'm going to put you on broadcast, all right.
Is Director Gosa with us now?
For some reason, it isn't lighting up. So I'm going to ask Joe to come look at this.
Okay. Okay, you guys got him? Okay, Director Gosa, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great, thank you. The motion was made by Director Kluhl to approve the resolution, and you have seen it or you have it in front of you?
Yes, I've seen it.
All right. Is it sufficient that you've seen it? Does he need to read the whole thing back to you?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Then we're going to, it was moved by Director Kluel and seconded by Director DeSalvo, and we're going to open it up now for discussion. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve this resolution? Director Kluel.
Just a little background, and promise not to go on too long. Marissa, if I do, let me know. Okay, I know you will. You know, in speech class debate, I think they always say you start with a little amusing anecdote to get people loosened up. So I've got a short thing that I want to read, and it also ties into what Mr. Raudebush talked about earlier as well. There's a elementary school principal in Massachusetts that went to one of his classes and spent some time in the class, and this was his observation. He said, "I was carving pumpkins with our transitional class for Halloween. After I finished my masterpiece, one little boy asked me what I was going to do with it. Well, I replied that I was going to place it in my office window and then take it home after work on Friday. Oh, he said, where do you work? And so, of course, a child, you know, in elementary school doesn't know that the principal actually has a job other than seeing bad students. There's other things that principals do. But I think it's the same way here. I think, you know, I don't know how many of you knew what a school board was when you were in elementary. I didn't, actually, even in high school. I had no thought of what these people did. But it's just an awesome responsibility that we have for some 15,800 students in our district. And Mr. Rodebush talked about that sign that was in back of Kimberly Center when the board used to meet there. It's about the students. And you know, Pete, that helps me to understand, I think, a little bit about the person that was on this board when I was on in 2001 and 2002. This guy back here on the wall, Jim Hester, would always tell us that, look, you know, when we got mired in details and things, he would say, what about the students? It's about the students. So I have a feeling that that's where that might have gotten started. It's very interesting. So background-wise, you know, this has been a long journey. I think it was Pat Zamora probably about 8 years ago that started this as she was looking through some numbers and saw that, in fact, Davenport schools and other schools were funded at different rates. We had always assumed that all schools were funded equally. It was an anomaly. And so we talked about that for a couple of years, and we continued to march on doing allowable growth, or SSA, you know, thinking that that was the most important thing. But finally it occurred to us that, you know, maybe, what if we could do something about this? You know, it was in state code. This was state code. We said, how can a school board impact state code? But we said, what if? What if we can do something? Because it was a moral imperative. It's just morally unjustifiable, as the resolution says, to allow some students to be funded at greater amounts than others in the state of Iowa, because funding equates to ability to provide quality education. So Pat got that started. We rolled with it with the Legislative Advocacy Committee, and over the years, talking with legislators, the worth less students coming together, legislators over the years coming up with potential solutions. Representative Thiede actually has a very good bill out there right now, a House bill. Representative Winkler has a couple of bills. Representative Poston, a bill. All those bills are very good, but they are not going to go anywhere with the political climate as it is in the Capitol. That's just the way politics works. The majority rules. In the Senate side, Senator Sinclair, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee, came up with a bill, and that is SSB 1124, and submitted it, and has been reviewed, went through the subcommittee, was approved by the subcommittee. The subcommittee was made up of Senator Green, Senator Kornbach, and forget who the third senator was, but they all, a bipartisan group, sent that on to Senate committee. It's now in the Senate committee. Interestingly enough, during that process of being reviewed in the subcommittee, Senator Todd Bowman came in, who is not on the committee, but he sat in on that because he's a teacher. He's a social studies teacher, actually, in Maquoketa. And he said, you know, this 10-year phase-in is very extended, and I think you ought to, because what happens with this formula is that it's $175, again, that we're making up over 10 years. And so the proposal right now with SSB 1124 is that it would be $5 in the next year, $10 in the year after, and $20 per year thereafter. He said, look, you know, can't you ramp this up and make it $10 in the first year, $20 in the second, third, fourth, and on out? So I believe that the Senate Education Committee is probably going to add that as an amendment to the bill, which will help considerably. As far as support, lobbyist support, the Iowa Association of School Boards, the Urban Education Network, the Chamber of Commerce. One of the collaborators that we've been working with this bill has been the Chamber of Commerce. They've been working hard to make sure that the business community is behind this. As we've been working with John Deere, and it was very evident when they talked to the Worth Less students that you have to get the economics behind this. You need to get the business community behind this, because just saying that it's a moral imperative is not enough. Hard to understand, but it's not enough. So we had to prove the economics. So we have the business community, the Chamber Alliance, and about 5 different chambers are registered as supporting this bill. And interestingly enough, at this point, the Farm Bureau is neutral. As you know, the Farm Bureau has always been against this kind of thing, but they are registered as neutral. So the time is right to move forward. Senate File 304 provides the school district the opportunity to reduce the cap of the reserve funds, which is currently set at 20% of the following year's operating budget. Reducing that down to 15% gives a delta of funding that we can use. In addition to that, 304 also provides for use of interest on the reserve account. So our reserve account now, I think, is probably down to $23 million. So that's a fair amount of money. It's not enough to make us well. But I think that, you know, I think of Martin Luther King, and I think of the mountaintop that he talked about. He was talking about a mountaintop of racial equality. And when little white boys and little black girls and boys and girls could get together and live in harmony. Well, this is a mountain of equality. And so we see this mountain of equality, and it's out there, and it's a 10-year path at this point to get there. It's longer than we'd like, but it is a path that we've been trying to reach for a long time. In fact, there was at one point when President Johansson said if we could just get $1 per year, at least it would be an admission that there is something wrong with this formula and we're going to change it. So it's not as much as we'd like, but it's something. The Davenport Community School District has provided leadership in this effort, and there are people across the state tonight watching to see what Davenport Community School District does with this resolution. Senate committees are meeting. The UEN, I know, is waiting to see what Davenport does. IASB, I'm not sure, but I do have to give them credit. As Ken said, they have been part and parcel in working the language of this bill with legislators. I myself am going to be going up to Des Moines tomorrow, again to the Capitol. I'm going for an early childhood Iowa meeting, but I'm also going to, hopefully, if the board should so choose, take an approved resolution to provide to our legislators. So with that, I just want to say that, you know, the wonderful thing about being on the school board is that we are our own people. We don't have a caucus to report to. We take responsibility for the votes that we make. And I think that's the way it should be. I pride myself in being an Iowan because of that position. I think there are other states that these are partisan We are not. We don't owe anything to anybody except our own conscience, and the decision that we make tonight has to be made on the basis of our students, not party. This is not a competitive sports game. This is about our students. So I hope that you will all take that into account as you cast your vote for this resolution this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion?
Mr. President?
Director Gosa.
All right, I'm going to make this short and sweet because I have to be getting back to work. I'm going to be voting no for this on the simple fact I have not seen the legislator do anything to help education as of yet with the inadequate supplemental state aid they gave us. The tax on our teachers is just all detrimental to education, and I just do not have the faith in them to support this, so I'm going to be voting no.
All right.
That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional discussion? Students? Anything? All right. I've got a few comments. I was thinking about this quite a bit over the past several days, and a lot of my comments may seem to echo Director Kluhl's. I looked at it a little bit differently, but it is all about students. And I actually listed names. I'm not sure that I'm going to read all the names, but I will address some of the organizations that so many of these people are part of. And as I think about this, I think that, yes, President Zamora, I think, highlighted that this was a fact. And it was really stunning, I think, when it occurred. It's like, that's not possible because we're in Iowa. And all students must be treated equally. So along with highlighting that, one of the other things that President Zamora allowed, and that board, I think, must have voted in, it made legislative advocacy a standing committee of the board. And I remember some of President Zamora's words as we went out to try to do this, and they were words of encouragement and flexibility. She said, basically, do whatever's legal to get this thing done. I think about school board members in general, and we've had a lot of school board members that have participated, some on the current board and some on past boards that have worked really hard. And it's just, when I think about all this, and I'm going to list, like say, some areas, but I am guessing that just from the Davenport district, which includes a lot of groups that I'll mention, I suspect that it's thousands and thousands of hours that have been dedicated to this effort. And as Mr. Crumwitty said earlier, it's not done. You know, this is just a resolution that we're intending to pass tonight, and we're hopeful that something like this will happen in our state, and it will address inequality and inequity, even if it does take some time. Our board secretaries, I thought about them. They have counseled us and helped us with the Get on the Bus. That's a lot of work, and that's not just dedicated to this effort. It's dedicated to a lot of things. But there I wanted to highlight, going back to Linda Smith Kortmeyer was the board secretary when I started, and then after that was Lynette Carver, and after that, and we still have, is Mary Carruthers. And our board secretaries have been just crucial in helping to make sure that we get all of this done. our administrators. We've had several administrators working with us, and almost tirelessly. And I got to say that I think it's been a lot of fun. And there is one that I have to mention, because she is always with us, always helping us think about things, reining us in, giving us rope, and that's Rachel Steiner. She's just been amazing over the past 10 or 12 years, however long it's been. I really have no idea. That could be, yeah. Our students, some of you have seen our students here, and you've heard about our students, and my goodness, they are, as Director Kluhl said, they're just stunning. The work that they've done, and they've done things. The Worth Less campaign is a purely student initiated and student driven and led campaign, and we've had students, and the students come and go. We've had students that have graduated and now they're in college and doing other things, but a lot of students, and they've put together programs. They've made presentations to leaders in our community. They have met with the legislators and with the governor, and just they have participated in ways that are almost unbelievable. And there are so many times I wish that I could be a student right now and participate in the same way that they are. I hope that it's meaningful for them as much as it's meaningful for our whole district, and actually our whole state. These bills, if they end up being law, they will affect equality and equity throughout the whole state of Iowa. And so part of the credit has to go to our students. We have, along with some of the students that we've already mentioned, our Iowa Youth Congress, which is led by Dave Thiede out of Mid-City. They've been working on trying to establish bills as well, and they have been working with our legislators. Our teachers. We've had several teachers involved in this whole project, and they've done a lot of work in some of the individual schools, with a lot of the students, with just all sorts of things that are going on. Our legislators, of course. And there are a lot of legislators that have been involved. And so other than those that have been mentioned, I want to be really careful, because all of our local legislators have been working in one way or another, whether it's building bills, whether it's communicating with other legislators, senators and representatives both. They've done a lot of work on behalf of equality and equity in the state. Governor Branstad and Lieutenant Governor Reynolds have given some time to our students and to our board members when they've gone to the Capitol to talk about these things, and I certainly want to recognize them. And I think it's been kind of a long, hard slog, of course, but it does seem like the governor has acknowledged that this is something that does need to be changed, and it feels to me like he's willing to accept a change like is being discussed here. I want to talk about a few organizations and then some specific people. The organizations, some of which have been already mentioned: the Iowa Association of School Boards, the Urban Education Network. Actually, the AEA has been involved in some of this. And these are things that most of you probably, you see what the bills are, you see the resolution, but you may not be aware of all of the different people and organizations that are involved in this. The Rural School Advocates of Iowa, that's an organization that we, the Davenport District, or Davenport Board, I think it's the board, joined last year. And they have been working with all of their member districts as well to try to further the idea of equality and equity. The Chamber of Commerce, of course, that Director Kluhl mentioned, has worked tirelessly on some of this. The City of Davenport and a lot of other people within Davenport. Some specific people, I got to mention Margaret Buckton. Margaret has helped us in so many ways for so many years, helping us to strategize and figure out tactics. She's acted as a lobbyist. She's communicated with a lot of people at the Capitol. Lou Finch, who is, I don't know exactly what his title is, but he kind of runs, CEO of the UEN. Lisa Bartusik, who is probably CEO of IASB. And Bob Olson, who's the president of Rural School Advocates of Iowa. I also want to mention Norm Bauer. Norm Bauer has been working on another organization. It's a 501c4, and it's called Funding Equality Now. And there are some buttons that some of us have, and that's an organization to help raise awareness. There's a web page and a Facebook page. But that's another piece of all of this, and some of the fundraising and the awareness that's going out to the whole rest of the state, which is really important. There are two other people that I have to mention by name. And I guess I'll mention Superintendent Tate first. You know, everybody's aware of some of the things that Superintendent Tate has done, and his principled stand that he took a couple years ago, whenever it was, when he realized that we have to do something, and he said, by golly, it is all for the students, and he laid it all out there on behalf of equality for all students in the state of Iowa. And the last person that I want to acknowledge here is Director Kluhl. I remember when I got on the board, one of the first meetings we had was out at John Deere Davenport, and it was kind of a workshop, and I was brand new. I didn't know what was going on, but I remember this guy, Director Kluhl, talking about legislative advocacy and going up to the Capitol, and I thought, wow, I wonder if there's something I could do. And he has worked tirelessly, selflessly for all of these years. And I have to say that I do believe that without his individual efforts, this whole effort probably wouldn't be anywhere near what it is now. We have boards that are changing all the time. We have students that are changing. We have legislators that are changing. But his efforts to keep things going, to organize things, to help out with the get on the bus, to organize trips up there to talk with the legislators, to meet with the governor. All of these things, I think, have been holding all of this together. And when you think about school board members, administrators, all of our students, the teachers, the legislators, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the other people that are involved, and then the organizations. And I would just guess that if I were to guess total number of people here in these areas that I've mentioned, I would say that it's probably between 100 and 200 people. And trying to keep track of all of those people and all of the efforts and everything going on is very, very challenging. And so I just wanted to thank everybody involved. But I wanted to especially thank past President Pat Zamora, our current Superintendent Tate, and our current Director Kluhl. So I certainly support this resolution. Is there any other discussion? If not, we will call the vote. All right, Director Kluhl. Oh, excuse me, Director Mayfield.
I wholeheartedly agree with much of what I've just heard about the inequities of funding, and our education is affected by the quality, basically, of what type of funding we get, and we have been short many years. And I am glad that we have such a backing and support from the community. But I hope that we remember at the same time that there sometimes can be inequity within our system, even if we gain the type of funding that we need. And I hope that even if we get the funding, we have to realize that there's changes that we still have to make in order to make these inequities go away. Not only just in funding, but just in general for students in our district. Because I hope that we can get everyone behind that as well, as we've got the type of support that we're getting to get the funding corrected. Also get that same type of support to get rid of many inequities that we may have in the district. All students deserve an opportunity to be fulfilled as far as their potential. And I hope that we'll be able to gain that type of support community-wide as we're getting for this inequity in funding. So I will vote for it for that reason, hoping that we can have the same type of support to get rid of inequities within the system as well as outside of when it comes to funding. So thanks.
Thank you very much for those comments. Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Unless, Superintendent Tate, I didn't ask you for any comments. Do you have any?
I would just mention the two things that I think are underpinning, at least since I've been here, is one night you said we have to do something bold and threw that out on the table, and that was it. And the other is the support of the board. If the board didn't, from the very beginning through this very moment, support it, it'd be dead in the water. So you have to be proud of yourself. That's the reason we're here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
No.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. It's 8:15. Superintendent Tate. How much time do you anticipate for the budget?
I guess 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the questions and discussion from the board.
What's the board's pleasure? You want to take a quick break or continue?
Proceed.
Director DeSalvo. If there's a yes, we'll take a 4-minute break, a recess. All right, we'll take 4-minute recess. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and continue. Superintendent Tate, you want to discuss the budget?
Thank you. I know that board members, you have received the budget before, and you may want to bring it up. I have some of the long matrix if you want to look at those. I don't know. I'll pass a couple that way, 3 this way. This has not changed since last we talked. We have this on the agenda for every meeting we have, including the committee of the whole next Monday, and then at the end of the month, the CFO will be asking us to pass something that she can put in the newspaper. So we've got about another month to look at these things. Recollect, it's a 3-year plan. I've divided it on the long sheet by categories. So, and one of the reasons I've done that is so people can see that. Certainly trying to spread out the pain so that no area, no program, no school gets hit more than others. Some of the issues we heard about tonight with the AP programs at West comes from a couple things. One is when schools lose students, then we adjust every year. That's not to do with the budget. That just has to do with if you've got fewer students, then there's a formula. Or if you have more students, like North has had more students, and we've had to add some cases. So some of it has to do with that, and also recollect in the first year we're adding 2 students to each high school class and 1 to each intermediate class. This is hard, and right now each principal is dealing with that. No decisions have been made. They're going to have to really continue to work and find out what is best for their student bodies. In the past, if you just talk about advanced placement, we've had classes that have been very small. I can remember French that we had a few years ago where people were going from Central to West at that time. And sometimes we've just had to do that. So that's not new. It's not unusual. We prefer not to. A solution to that is get more AP students if you can. Now for the advanced courses, that's kind of hard because you don't have the requisites. But ProStart travels, JRTC travels, welding travels, and it's just things that we do in this district because we can't have the same program in every school. But what I would say to people, let's let the principals work this out. Let them work with Mr. Scott. Let them continue to see where things might end up finally. And so, again, I don't have any other changes. I just want to point out that I've said all along this is fluid. For example, in year 2, I've got elimination of the district athletic director position. He's going to be the central principal next year, so we will have no position next year. So instead of 2 years from now, that will be eliminated next year. We will not rehire for him. And as people resign, as they retire, as they get promoted, if there are vacant slots, what we do is every slot we're going to sit down now and say, do we need that? Can we do without it? If not, we'll reduce it. And that's going to change the looks of this sheet every year. So again, I don't have any more to tell you. I would entertain your discussion and questions.
Any discussion or questions? Director Kluhl.
Well, I do appreciate when we went to Des Moines 2 weeks ago and talked with House and Senate majorities and minorities that we did talk about these budget cuts. I've always been concerned that they were so far away from what we do here that they really truly didn't recognize some of the cuts that we were making. And so I guess the burden has shifted. At least they understand now what impact it is when you make 1.1% SSA. 6 out of the last 7 years of SSA below the cost of doing business. These are the impacts. So we'll see what impact that had on them, but they are aware of what's happening, not only here at Davenport, because we made it clear to them that we're not alone in this in terms of making cuts statewide. So just to let you know that we have brought this up with our legislators.
Anybody else? Director DeSalvo.
There's a line item that says increased balance enrollment in elementary schools, 120,000. Can you detail what that is?
Our balanced enrollment, and I want Mr. Snaden to talk a little bit more about this, but balanced enrollment is when we have filled our class size in a school and there's no more room, and we actually take somebody from that neighborhood to another school by transportation because we are just full. That happened a lot before we got very strict with our transfer policies. The favorite schools of Adam and Harrison would be full, and people who moved in those neighborhoods could not go to those schools. So we worked very, very hard to eliminate that. Rather than do that, we will add a paraeducator, for example. If the class size should be 22, we might go 23 or 24, but add some paraeducator time. So that's the definition, but I'll let Bill talk a little bit about how he will do that this year.
That's pretty. That pretty much explains what the plan is. We did do our staffing at the elementary, and because of the reduced enrollments, we were able to capture some of those dollars right there because there's fewer students, and so our intentions will be to. We called it capture it in balanced enrollment, but we're going to capture those dollars in staffing costs.
Okay, thank you.
I think we reduced. I think we were able to reduce something like 36 hours of paraeducator time by keeping kids in their buildings and not expanding the size of the class.
If I may ask a question.
Sure, Director Mayfield.
I don't know if it's of any help, but changing any boundaries at all, would that make a difference in school attendance to either bring up an attendance at a school or to lower it?
It could. I mean, when we did the last boundary change, what we tried to do was fill each school equally. And I think we were using 84, 85% at the time. So, yeah, that could, but boy, what I worry about is you've got to make sure that you're pretty sure the neighborhood isn't going to change again on you as far as where people are. We think we might be able to save some money by changing bell times, though. And we're actually hiring a consultant to help us look at that. And what we're asking the consultant, forget about convenience, forget about who should go first. Can you suggest the bell time that would make the transportation the cheapest? And we're going to see what they provide for us. But boundaries, I've got to give it more thought. I can't think of anything offhand which would help us do that would be permanent. I haven't thought about it before.
But that does shift attendance when you do have
it absolutely would. So it might save some of the balanced enrollment we're talking about, that we wouldn't have to transport somebody to another school if we moved a boundary line somewhat. But again, it is such a horrendous thing to do. I don't like to think about it. And I would have to make sure it would really save us money, and I haven't given that any thought, to be honest, yet.
Did you have more, Director Mayfield?
No,
on
that was the question.
Okay. Director Hayes.
Yes, what is the proposed walk zone for the elementary school?
Well,
Increase.
we're at 1 mile right now, is that right? 1.5, and we can go to 2. So that would be the difference, that we'd add a half mile. We've always tried to stay away from that. We've never wanted to do that. But it is an option.
Director DeSalvo.
I'm sorry that if this was said and I missed the exact date. We have to approve this by April 1st?
We're going to ask for the board to take action on the 27th of March. What you'll be acting on is the levy, not this plan.
Right.
I mean, this is the plan where when you set the levy, I'm telling you,
It'll
this is the
help
plan
with
I've
this.
got to follow.
So
We're working on this already. We're already making decisions based on this plan.
So thinking optimistically, SSB 1124 is going to bring us $74,000, which is great. But then the other, I'm hoping 304 will allow us to use reserve money, correct? We won't have that we could have that resolution by May 1st? End of April? Is that when their session ends?
But recollect, I've already done that in this plan.
Right,
It
but
doesn't give you any more.
even if they open it up more, we wouldn't.
I don't think they're gonna. I think it's fairly tightly written that what you can use is the
Up
difference.
to the max.
Yeah.
Okay.
There, you can use interest. That might help a little bit on our reserve, but
It's about
it's
another.
it's not going to do much for us.
Okay.
So,
Director Mayfield.
so how will that, we've had such an impact with students leaving the district. So with the plan of the hopefully being funded from the state, how will we be impacted with the projected number of students that are leaving now?
That's hard to tell. We lost 300 between last year and this year. That's about $2 million. We've lost students every year except one. We actually gained 150, so there's some variation. The assumption...
How far back was that year that we gained?
Maybe four
4 years
ago.
ago.
That's while I was here, when I first got here. We've assumed a loss of 150. That's our assumption. If we lose less than that, then that's a bonus for our assumptions that we've made. And so we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, everything we're doing is trying to keep students. We're trying to cut down the dropout rate. Recollect, we had a dropout increase of 100 students from the year before, so we try to control that. The other increase was students moving out of the city, and that's where the city and district partnership might work as we work together on that.
Thank you.
Director DeSalvo.
In fiscal year 2018-2019, you have a line item for Creative Arts Academy. What does that encompass? That
So everything on that line item, it's under eliminate or find funding for new programs. The para to education tuition, that's our Grow Your Own, the Creative Arts Academy, 3 diversion teachers, 5 math coaches, 2.5 interventionists, and 0.5 Davenport Digital Innovators are all programs that we have added above and beyond. And when we did that, we did it with the risk of knowing that unless we found the extra money, they're going to have to go. So all of those, I've got to find grants for them. I've got to get donations. I've got to get funding of some sort. Many of those we're already putting in for grants. We'll have to see how that works. Creative Arts Academy, we're constantly working on trying to expand that base. So that's what those programs are. The stuff we added and said, we need this to address our students' needs.
But this is all inclusive. It's not just pieces of these programs. It's
That's
everything.
Yes. Well, the Creative Arts Academy, if we don't get $350,000, and again, we're continually working on getting it, we can't fund that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my hope that all these will be there. We'll find ways to fund them.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Snyder.
One question on the music lessons that we had talked about a little bit last time. It says a estimated savings of $80,000. I'm assuming that's one less music teacher, but does that mean on top of it, music classes also going, or just? I mean, because the teachers are already there. I guess I'm not sure where the $80,000 savings.
Rob, I'll let you address that because you've talked with Mr. Swagler on that one.
If we were to, that's strictly around lessons and the staffing, and so if we were to go from 1 to 2 students that we do lessons with, it would potentially reduce 4 teachers in the course of the time. That's what we could reduce. We only put 1 in there because we're not going to displace anybody, so it's by attrition, and so there could be 1 teacher by attrition this year. But we would need the policy to change to say that it can be more than individual lessons before we can move forward on that.
So do we have teachers that do nothing but individual lessons?
We do.
Okay.
And we also have, it would not affect the classroom. It would not affect the classes being offered.
Okay.
If that's your, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? Director DeSalvo.
It's kind of strange, and I don't know if you can answer this, but so you said that with the early change in position with the athletic director for the Davenport schools, and that position will not be replaced. Do you have how are we gonna do that? What's
Well, actually, not a strange question. I mean, obviously, he's working now and he's working full time. We've got in mind the school athletic directors will probably have to take on some of the responsibility, and also we're talking about the possibility of hiring perhaps somebody retired to work part time, perhaps 2 half-days a week or 3 half-days a week. We've done some of that with equity, for example, and the people who do our investigations. So we actually have hired some retired principals to do that work. So that's right now our general plan. We haven't finalized it, but when we were thinking about this, we had to at least have an alternative plan in our mind.
just happened sooner than we thought? Thank you.
Anything else? Well, I've got a couple of things. One of the things that I was thinking about over the weekend, to have front page news talking about our budget, and it was pretty graphic, and to see it right there, and I wanted to actually thank our media, all of our media, especially the Times. The Times is almost always here, and Deirdre is almost always here till as long as we go. But really, I think that they are doing a great job of letting our community know what's going on, which I think is really important, especially with this kind of budget issue. When I see it there, I see it here, and I understand this, but you see it in the newspaper, and it's like, gah, and then my mind goes to, I start calculating, well, what percentage is that of our budget? How much are we actually cutting, things like that. And then how does all of this relate to what's going on at the Capitol? And that $2.7 million in 1819 and 1920 would be significantly impacted no matter what happens with if the bills don't make it. Then I think the superintendent takes the money out of the reserves as long as he can. But if the bills make it, it probably changes all of that as well, which probably then changes the budget, I'm guessing. I don't know how that all works. It's just part of the calculus, I think. I think the other part is just our whole district, our board, our everybody involved. We're going to have to work hard on this, and I don't know, it's a tough spot to be in, and I appreciate the superintendent and everybody working with him to put together these really challenging budgets. And the other thing I wanted to remind the board, though, if there is something, because I know that you're getting communications, calls, emails, whatever, and if there's something, we've got, what do we have, another month to bring it up, bring it to the superintendent's attention. But because beyond that, we'll go ahead, and probably on the 27th will be the motion. So that's about all I've got. Anything else? Director Mayfield.
That's what's on the plan right now. Nothing else changes.
So if we are able to pass these solutions and the funding is raised, supplement that 175 per student, as well as if we get that basically, and the short range, having it, the supplemental funds that we need, would we still in 1920 be looking at closing a school?
So what this
2019, 2020.
What this plan doesn't take into account is if we get $5 more per student next year, then $15 per student more the year after, but that's not that much. Something else would have to radically change in the time, and it might. I mean, a lot of things can happen. So, but with the 10-year plan, we're not going to get anything that soon to affect.
So basically, following this plan, we would be closing the school in 3 years.
Right now, yes.
I mean, unless there's some place that we could get funding that.
Yes.
It doesn't look like it.
Right. I mean, it's $1 million. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for that discussion item, Superintendent Tate. We'll move on to policies. Director Snyder, you want to lead that discussion?
Sure. These are 4 policies that we touched on in the last 30 seconds or so of our last meeting. 4 of them that the policy committee hasn't really had much discussion other than the basics. In fact, we'll just hit them one at a time. 501.11. This was an attendance one. The only change to it was they removed transfers which are permitted by the No Child Left Behind legislation because that's no longer intact, and replaced that with transfer approved to attend Buffalo Elementary STEAM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Arts and Math project, basically treating that as like a magnet type program. And I thought, well, before we as a policy committee can really decide anything, that goes kind of against our policy of the strict borders. So is this something that the board would want to consider? So from there, we'll open it up. Am I missing anything, Bill?
I would just comment that it's under the same guidelines as up above. There has to be room in the classroom, not to exceed the class size limits, and parents would be responsible for their own transportation.
Does anybody have any? Well, surely somebody has to have some sort of opinion on it. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no questions or discussion on it, then we'll bring it for approval at our next meeting. Nope, that's it for that one. Now the next two, one at a time. 602.14, co-curricular and extracurricular activities. We started reading this, and the thought of the policy committee at the time is this basically talks about how we fully support extracurricular activities and things like that in the schools. And we thought, well, there's a lot of things that we support, but we don't have individual policies on them. Do we need a policy that says we support these? Because there's a lot of things that we don't have policies on that obviously we support. And this just goes into that weeding down. Do we really need as many policies and as strictly written as we have? So any comments, questions?
I would agree as it's written right now. I mean, we recognize the value of co-curricular, and well, yeah, we support the opportunity for students to engage. Well, yeah, I mean, these are all truisms. But I'm thinking of the board belief statement. One of our beliefs is that all kids should be involved in some co-curricular, extracurricular activity. Now just bring that up as one of our beliefs. And I think with our past discussion that we've had, and I don't suppose we're done with the arts credit requirement yet, but we're certainly not going to say in here that we require, don't let me say certainly, but I just wanted to open that up for discussion as a belief statement. But I don't suspect that we're going to write a policy that says you must take a co-curricular and extracurricular activity. But what does that mean when we say that one of our core belief statements is that all students should be involved in an extra or co-curricular activity? How do we back that up? Is that just a good wish? And I agree. I don't think wishes belong in our policy. So as it's written, I would say move it out.
Richard Johansson.
Thank you. I think one of the ways that we support our belief statements and something like that is by offering all of these co-curricular and extracurricular activities. And I don't even have any idea how many there are, but I think it's got to be an enormous number of activities, and the people that are involved in, we talk here about the supervision, all of the things that go on. So I don't think it is just a wish. I think it's a real, we offer all these things, and we want to encourage it. If we get to the point of requiring it, well, then we get to that point. But I think at least offering it is really, really important. But as far as the policy goes, I wouldn't have any problem in getting rid of it.
Dr. Tate, is it reasonable to believe that over the next 3 years we'll have less opportunities for co-curricular and extracurricular activities? Funding as it is?
I mean, I don't think so. I don't see, I'm trying to think of the matrix. I don't see anything on there that would hit that directly. We're trying very hard not to.
I will say the one thing that we only talked about these briefly at our last policy meeting, and one of the things is if we do eliminate the policy, we don't want people to think all of a sudden, that's it, they're going to cut all extracurricular activities. I mean, that's not the case. We're just talking about having a policy that's kind of like saying, while we're in school, we're going to breathe. I mean, it's pretty obvious that as a district, there's a lot of things that we value, but we don't need a policy for each one of them. Director Mayfield?
I think it's important to support and encourage our students, and I think it needs to be in print because we have a more of a tendency to advocate and direct ourselves, and the students as well, if it's something that's in print rather than just insinuate it. Yeah, we know that those things are important to learning, to full development. But if we don't state it anywhere, it doesn't have the same validity. Even though it's out there, it's not something that we're actually aiming. It's a goal to make happen. Even if it's not a policy that we cannot make students do, they need to know how important it is. And that's what that statement does. It lets them know that we are focusing on that as well as the other parts of education.
Okay.
The only part that I see in there would be where it talks about eligibility standards, and then it also talks about requirements. And so I want to make sure that we have that posted somewhere else. I think it says eligibility requirements and other administrative procedures. So I think that's could be with our good conduct policy. I'm not sure if that's in board policy somewhere else where it talks about good conduct. So that's all. So I'd want to have that before I eliminated this policy or recommend to.
Okay. Are the eligibility requirements or anything spelled out in any administrative regulation?
They are. Yes, they are spelled out as far as what's dictated to us by the state.
Okay.
I'd have to, I would need to see if that falls under 602. This is the first time I'm seeing this, so 602.14, whether it's falling under that or a different part of your policy. So I would just want to verify that before you voted to eliminate. And I don't think you're doing that tonight anyway, but just so you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on this one? Okay, we'll move on to 603.03. This one came about with homework, and there was some changes that were proposed in this, and I don't even remember what they are right now, because then we basically said, all right, again, this is a policy that this is all spelled out explicitly in administrative regulations, and kind of gets out of where a board has authority anyway. So do we need a policy on homework?
I would say not.
And that's what we were wondering as a policy committee, but again, before we didn't even talk about it that much, this is one that said, well, let's have the board talk about it before we delve into it. So Rich says not that much.
I mean, it's true that we do want to be centered on student achievement. But I think when you narrow that down to the point where you're talking about homework in a classroom, it's beyond what a school board should be meddling with. We have lots more important things to deal with and lots of well-paid employees who can make those determinations better than we can.
And that was our thinking. Again, it's not that homework's not important, it's that it's not a board. I mean, this is an operations, clearly an operations thing, that the board just does not get involved in operations, so. But it was put in there for, since 1976, so. That's what we wanted to discuss. Anybody else have any ideas or thoughts on it?
I would have to ask, why was that put in there in 1976? Was there, by any chance, a problem with getting our families, our parents, our kids to give that the type of attention? I don't know if any of us had that kind of history. We weren't in these positions at that time. But it's likely that it was something that they felt that was very important to educating. Now, whether it needs to be a policy or something done within the levels of teaching, I can't really say, but I think the board's reasoning behind it may have been to emphasize the importance of homework. Is there some other way to do that? I don't know.
It's interesting that the importance of homework is changing, and research is really telling a different story. Remember, we gave you the SBAR briefing, the standards-based reporting that we're going to be doing, and homework doesn't play as important a part in that. So what I want the board to do is continue to be apprised of what's going on, work with us philosophically on that, hey, we're going the right direction, but I wouldn't want a policy because, like I said, it's going to change, and we will bring it back to you. As you see, Corey Guy's working on that now. And Bill, you want to mention anything? Because you've worked with him, I think.
I would just say that there's some extensive work being done right now on grading, and homework is a part of that. It's guidelines. It's the district grading or guidelines, and they're all being updated. They've brought in a speaker that's worked with department heads. It's gone to our elementary principals groups that have to look at it. It's been vetted through the district student achievement team, and they're really honing in on what does this guideline need to look like. So I would encourage you to have us continue that work and have her share that with you when it gets done. But I would agree, I don't see the need for the policy here.
I will point out two of them that we talked about, and one of them that Corey Guy had mentioned that needs to go. If we keep this policy, number 8 needs to go because it says completed homework shall be reflected in the students' grades, and that's not part of what they are putting together right now. But from a board standpoint, this policy is invasive, even to the point where it says teachers shall be encouraged to give the week's homework assignments at the beginning of the week. I mean, it tells them when they're going to assign the homework. I mean, that's just, the board has no business running a classroom. So I recommend, I'm in favor of removing this as a policy, just purely because it is an operations type issue, and we have administrators in place they're much more suited than I to determine homework requirements. And any other comments on that one? If not, we will move on to the last one, Code of Ethics. We've got this huge, 4-page thing, and I was getting ready we thought as a policy committee we could probably sum this up as in one paragraph. And I sat down probably 5 or 6 times. I started to write this, and I thought, really, do we need a policy that says we're all going to act professional to one another and be courteous to one another? I mean, do we really need a policy that says that? And so I quit writing it, and before I spent any time on it, I wanted to, again, have a discussion here. And there's some at the end that are so far outdated, I'm not sure how they even ever really got in there. I mean, it talks about not recommending teachers for positions in another school, blah, blah. I mean, it talks about hiring teachers and stuff. I mean, that's not something we get involved with. I will consider it unethical to bid for the services of a teacher or pursue any procedure calculated to embarrass a neighboring board or superintendent. I mean, there's so many things here that, and again, this was put in 1976. That must have been the year of policy.
I like that I will give the superintendent friendly counsel and advice.
But if you read through these, I mean, there's so many of them that, I mean, I think this is taken straight from the Iowa, it says Code of Ethics. I think it's taken straight from the Iowa Association of School Boards. But we haven't even gone as far yet. I mean, if we're required to have this as a policy, but I guess, do we need it? Go ahead.
Unless there's a reference in the bottom that says, a reference to the Iowa Code or something, I would say most likely not. As you were talking, I was thinking about this might be part of a board handbook, or something like that, so that we could refer back to it and read it once in a while. There are a lot of pretty good ideas in here, but I support the idea of not putting it into, it's listed as bylaws of the board. I support the idea of not having it as part of our policy.
Well, it takes me back to Pirates of the Caribbean again, and Johnny Depp, who said, "Aye, matey, I see the code more as guidelines than a code." So these are some, guidelines here, and they're great guidelines. But I guess what I would do is, if you wanted to have it in, oh, Vera's just left.
You just gave it all away.
Huh? Well, I was just getting to the biblical part. And that's, you just replace this with the golden rule. If you're looking for a paragraph, that covers it all.
Yeah.
So I agree. This is not the place for this list of things.
Anything else? If not, we're done here.
All right. Thank you for that discussion. Move on to administrative reports.
None tonight.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board requests? I don't have any here. I know there was one I wanted to prepare, but I forgot it. All right. If there are no board requests, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.